I'd be so blue, just sitting home and thinking about you.
Darling, I don't want you to do that. I don't want you to be just sitting home and thinking about me. I want you to go out.
Thank you so much for staying tuned to 90.9 FM. My name is Boschulte, and my guest, if you could say your first name, your last name, and the name of the organization you're with.
Hi, my name is Hans van der Velde. I'm the CEO of WINAIR.
Great. See, I always butcher people's names, so you're going to have to repeat that for me so I don't mess it up. I know Mr. Hans.
Just use Hans, because the Van der Velde might be too complicated.
Yeah, for me it is. Thank you so much. I mean, my last name is a little messed up too. Like, it's Boschulte, but it's spelled with an E. So people in the States say Boschulte. Locals say Boschulte, and friends say Biesa. So, so we'll go forward from there. Where were you born and raised? You don't have to tell me your age.
No, I'm originally from the Netherlands, where I lived for many years. But the past years, I had some adventures for work also in France and in Morocco.
I've been to Sweden.
Okay.
It was quite cold when I went there.
I hope for you it was not in winter time.
And then it was unique because I was supposed to go back to, I forgot, we were traveling, and then we missed the flight, and it wasn't an everyday flight. It was an every other day or every 2 or 3 days, something like that. So then I had to catch a train. So I caught the train from Sweden, and I told the story in the air before that it was the first, we passed by Germany, and it was the first time I ever been to a bathroom that you had to pay to utilize. And for both, one or two, you have to pay money as you go in. But then I noticed that in some of the American airports bathrooms now, they leave like a little section for tips or something like that. So, I mean, this was a long time ago. It was maybe, 18 years ago or something like that when I first went to Germany to notice that. But ever since, I've run into a few bathrooms on the American side, which I always found unique, that they don't want to tell you to pay. At least for the American side, they have like a tip jar. So they're not forcing you, but they're trying to tell you to keep it clean. If you want it clean, that you have to pay for.
Sounds like typical American solution. Yeah.
How was growing up in the Netherlands for you?
Sorry? Growing up in the Netherlands? Yeah. Well, I come from a large, 5 brothers and sisters, a happy family. So I had a very good youth, and decided to go to study. I studied in Rotterdam, a big city in the Netherlands, and also in the UK. So it's a very safe and comfortable and happy country. So it's a great country to grow up in.
That Netherlands, like all of Switzerland, all of them are neutral. They don't get into conflicts like how American, we always got to watch where we go sometimes. It's not like to say we could pick anywhere in the world we want to go to.
No, we can talk a long time about the United States, but maybe we should not do that.
I agree. After you graduated, you went on to stay in America. I mean, came over to the Caribbean side, or did you stay in the Netherlands for quite a bit?
No, I'm working in after some other adventures in business. I'm now in aviation and tourism for about 20 years. And the first years I spent in the Netherlands and in Belgium. I worked for a company also well known in this region. It's TUI. It's a large tour operator, and with a lot of flights to places like Antigua and Barbados, but also to the more southern islands like Curacao and Aruba. So that's how I got to know the Caribbean a bit, because we operated tourism flights to all these destinations.
And mostly from, when you first started, mostly from the Netherlands to the Caribbean?
Yes, I was also involved in Belgium, so it was from Amsterdam and from Brussels to the Caribbean. Yeah.
But did you choose those islands because they were easier to get into with the visas and different things like that, or was it easier? You had an easier route to get from Europe to the Eastern Caribbean?
I'm sometimes very surprised how these things develop because, as you might be aware, that if you live in the UK and you want to go to the Caribbean, people go to either Barbados and maybe to Antigua and St. Kitts.
Yeah.
If you're from the Netherlands, you go to Curacao.
Mm-hmm.
It has to do with historic bonds, I think,
Okay.
because Curacao and Barbados, and I don't want to insult anybody, are great touristic destinations. But if you look, for instance, to St. Kitts or Antigua or St. Martin, they're also great touristic destinations. But somehow in the UK, very much focus on Barbados. In the Netherlands, very much focus on the Netherlands. And in France, everybody goes to Martinique and Guadeloupe. That's a language thing also, of course.
A little bit of St. Bart's as well.
And okay, yes. A
little
bit of St. Bart's.
Yeah, a little French, you know.
Yeah. So it's very peculiar that really every country in the Netherlands has its own countries they like.
Okay. As an individual who first, before you came, what caused you to come to whichever island? Because you stated you had a company you were working with at first. Was it the attraction of leaving a cold climate to come to the warm Caribbean, or was it you ran into family and friends that had homes here? What caused you to want to start doing work in the Caribbean?
Well, it's two things. So I like aviation and tourism, and that's why I'm in there for 20 years. After the Netherlands, I worked in France for a number of years, so I speak French. And very simple, at one moment I saw an ad of an airline in St. Martin that was looking for a CEO. And one of the requirements was that the person should be able to speak English, Dutch, and French.
Oh, wow, you covered it.
I covered it. So but I had never visited St. Martin before, although I did open flights to St. Martin in my former job in 2016 with TUI, but I never went to St. Martin. But I asked my wife and son, well, I won't say for permission, but I told them we were going for a short holiday to St. Martin, and they quite liked it. So they also agreed that it could be a good idea to live here. So 2.5 years ago, I started in July 23 in my role.
And that's the role of CEO of WINAIR.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
As the CEO of WINAIR, you had to see something other than those three things to speak. You had to feel comfortable. So you visit the island with your family. You had to look at the company and see growth, where it was coming from, and where you can take it to. Give us a little not in depth, because I know, of course, there's certain things you can't say. But what triggered you, other than just seeing a job opening? What triggered you to say, "Hey, I want to run WINAIR"?
Well, it's two things. One thing very practically, that's more in the personal space. It's not the bad surrounding to live in the Caribbean. So the weather, the mentality, the food, the diversity, that is a big attraction for me and for us as a family. For the job, I was a bit hesitant because I knew the Caribbean aviation a bit, and it's a very volatile business. So there are a lot of airlines that start, that go bankrupt. So before beginning with WINAIR, I did look more in detail. Okay, what is this company? And the fact that the company is there for 65 years already, so it's the oldest in the region. That is, of course, a bit of a sign. So they survived for all those years.
Correct.
And the model that WINAIR has, not only focusing on local passengers, but also on connecting passengers that come to St. Martin and other islands, and we can bring them to other islands. It has proven that it's successful. So I thought, well, I won't say it was a bit of a gamble, because when I started WINAIR, I was already doing quite okay. But I like a bit of adventure, so I saw an opportunity to run a company that had a good legacy, that had potential, and I'm not afraid to take a bit of a risk. So I thought, let's just go for it.
Yeah. Oh, well, I agree with you in the sense of all you stated, and especially the last point with a risk. And not only for WINAIR, as you stated earlier, there's other airlines. WINAIR survived 65 years. I'm not that old yet, but I've seen a lot of airlines in the U.S. Virgin Islands that hasn't made it through because of whatever reasons. As you sat down and took the plunge, I agree with you on the different things with food, but let's go straight into WINAIR as a company. 65 years is a long time to be, and it's based in St. Martin, or it has the main offices are somewhere else?
No, the main offices is indeed in St. Martin. And as you say, there are a lot of airlines that struggle in this region in the past, and still. The last days there were again some messages, or we might get there. And one of the reasons is very simple. We're talking about very small countries, small islands.
Yeah.
So it's quite difficult to develop an airline that can make a bit of money, because simply there are not so many passengers.
Correct.
If you fly, I often use the example of Antigua and St. Kitts. So St. Kitts is about 50,000 people, and Antigua is about 100,000. Well, if you would take two cities in the United States, for instance, of these sizes, you will not have 3 or 4 airlines that compete against each other.
Correct.
And in this region, you do have 3 or 4 airlines. I don't know, airlines are somehow very attractive to people. So there are always persons with a bit of money who think, oh, let's start an airline. Or there are countries, it's a bit touchy, but there are countries that think they need an airline, and they start an airline and they lose a lot of money. So it's a difficult field, but it's attractive to a lot of persons. And I think one of the good things about WINAIR is that it's, yes, we are ambitious and we are growing, but we're not doing silly things. And I will use a very simple example. We fly small aircraft. We have 19-seaters and 50-seaters, which for me is a completely logical size for the routes we do. But from day one I arrived, people ask me, when are we going to fly jets? There is something with jets. I don't know what it is. Well, I can imagine that, okay, it sounds like something important, but it's not important, because a jet is an expensive and large aircraft. And in this region, you can't operate large and expensive aircraft, because you will go bankrupt.
Yes.
But somehow people keep asking me, okay, what about jets? So I ask, okay, suppose we have a jet. What are we going to do with a jet? Are we going to fly to Miami? Well, and then going to compete to all the American carriers like American or JetBlue or Spirit? No, you can't. So, but somehow people have this idea that you need to be big and develop into this. It's not necessary. In this region, it's better to be focused on what you can do with these smaller type aircraft and do that very well. Because I'm very proud as WINAIR, and it might sound very simple, but what do our passengers buy? They buy a ticket to get somewhere at a certain time. And I worked in Europe and in Africa before, and I was very surprised in this region that airlines cancel flights just like that, and somehow passengers are, I don't know, during the years they got used to it because they accept it. Oh yeah, it's cancelled. We go home again.
We try tomorrow.
We try tomorrow, but for me that's well, very different from my background. So for me, it's very important as an airline to be punctual, to be reliable, because that's the way you build your customers. Of course, price is important. Price is always important, but just canceling flights, that for me is very weird. And well, it does happen also with us sometimes for weather reasons, but we try to limit that really to as little as possible.
Mhm.
And strangely enough, with that we distinguish ourselves from other airlines, because other airlines, I don't know, they do it by habit, something like that.
You mentioned earlier, you said 19 and 50 seaters. The
Yes.
two type, see, those are even bigger than some of the ones we fly here in the U.S. Virgin Islands. There's, I believe, a 12
Yeah.
and an 8. Some of the airlines, we have about three airlines here, and they have smaller planes that people here complain about. So that's why when you said 19, I'm like, what? Those are big. Those are big. That's
Well,
a big.
it's good to hear that for some people 19 is a big aircraft. And
Yeah.
you just mentioned St. Bart's. We do fly a lot to St. Bart's, and there we are with our 19 seats, also the biggest aircraft.
Well, I don't think that anything bigger than a 19 seater can fly.
No,
these things.
can't handle that.
Yeah, I've been into, I forgot which airline it was that I flew into. Say, I love to fly, but I always tell people I love to fly, but one of my scariest moments was flying into St. Bart's. And so
It's quite special. It's quite special. Yes.
you mentioned earlier about your locals. I'll tell you about my locals in the U.S. Virgin Islands, who have the same mentality. As I'm listening to you talk about your locals in St. Martin and the other islands that you have to deal with. U.S. Virgin Islanders would look at a business like you're saying. They don't really push too much for jets, because if we want to go to America, we jump on the JetBlue. But we don't push too much like what you're saying with getting a jet. We're just so happy to get in between the islands because they're so expensive to go in between the islands. But they don't see, and I only say this because as a businessman, sometimes you have individuals who don't understand the whole thing. They only see the weekends when the plane is full, but they don't see during the weekday when there's no one flying, or when whether you or the other airlines have no one on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but still have to pay the pilot, still have to pay the check-in agent, still have to pay the baggage handlers. All those people still have to get paid, but they didn't have enough people flying that day. They see the weekends when everybody wants to travel between St. Thomas and Corey. They say, "Oh yeah, that's a ton. The plane's always booked and it's full." Like I said, and I agree with you, and that's because that's the weekend. But the weekday now, everybody's at work.
Everybody can make money during Christmas when you run an airline. That's the easy bit.
Yes.
But the Tuesday morning in November, or the Tuesday morning in early June, I won't say nobody wants to fly, but actually nobody wants to fly.
Yeah.
So, and yes, you're right. You do have your aircraft where you have to pay the lease. You do have your pilot. So that is quite complicated. But if you're a bit smart, there are solutions. And I will give you an example. I will get to the American Virgin Islands, where we unfortunately cannot operate. I will explain. But we do fly to the British Virgin Islands.
Yes.
But in the morning, from St. Martin, where our base is, to the British Virgin Islands, there's hardly any person that wants to go there. So if we fly from St. Martin to the British Virgin Islands to Tortola, with 50 seats, maybe 5 are taken. So what do we do? Because the direction is the other way. In the morning, people from Tortola want to go to St. Martin to connect to other islands. So we every night we overnight in the British Virgin Islands. So every night in the evening we fly from St. Martin to Tortola, to the British Virgin Islands. There is traffic in the evening. We let the aircraft sleep over there with the crew, and in the morning we fly back to St. Martin. So in that way you can find solutions.
Understood. It goes back to, it sounds you go through the same thing. In the U.S. Virgin Islands, you'll find a lot of people flying between St. Thomas and St. Croix for like the horse races, or for the carnival, or for a festival, or some type of function that locals would get together. So that's why I'm saying that the weekends you'll see a lot. So kind of sound like what you're saying.
Sorry to intervene. Festivals is a great example that people always think that we make a lot of money on festivals and carnivals. Unfortunately, it's not correct, for exactly the same reason as you say. If you have a festival in the weekend, of course, on Friday you see full flights because all the flights going there, but going back,
Yeah,
they are literally empty.
Yeah.
And you can put the price at $10, they're still empty because everybody wants to be at the festival.
Correct.
And after the weekend, it's the other way around, of course. So, but I mean, I'm not complaining, but that is indeed the reality of operating an airline. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and that's why when you said about jets, I was snickering only because I know it's easy to say as let's say me as an individual looking at your business and saying, oh, you should do this, but you're sitting behind the desk with more information than I have, saying that's not going to work. So that's why, as a business person, when I hear other people say, oh, this company should do this, that, I always think, why don't they open up a business?
And especially in this region, that was for me. I really had to get adapted. I'm used to for businesses to be run by people that know their business. So if you run a radio station, I suppose it's run by people that know how to run a radio station. But there are some airlines that seem to be run by governments. And that's a bit strange because the government is there to govern a country and not to run an airline. Because it is a complicated business to run an airline. So if you kind of oblige an airline to fly certain routes, it's very easy to lose a lot of money in aviation. So if you have political influence on your airline, it's nearly a given that you will not be successful because you can't handle that.
Totally understood. As you mentioned earlier with the different routes, so that individuals like myself, I know about WINAIR, but I don't know your different routes. I did hear and Aldi sent the information. I did read some of the different routes that you have, and so those listening or watching this recording in the future, how can somebody utilize WINAIR and where do they go?
Well, if you simplify it, we connect all the countries and the islands between in the northwest, the British Virgin Islands, to the south to Trinidad. We just announced a few days ago that we will open Trinidad as destination, and the only important destination that we're still missing is Grenada, so that will be on the roadmap later on.
Actually, important would be the USVI, but you'll tell me later why you can't.
Yes, so. No, you are right. Oh, we would love to fly to St. Croix and St. Thomas, but unfortunately, we're not allowed. But I will get to that. So we have 9 aircraft, and with these 9 aircraft, we cover all these countries. And the base of our model is that we either connect islands direct. For instance, from the British Virgin Islands, we have, I think, 18 or 20 flights per week. From St. Kitts and Nevis, we have 26. From Antigua, 17. And, well, from the BVI, we fly to Dominica, to Antigua, to St. Martin, to St. Kitts. And via St. Martin, we connect onwards to places like St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Barbados, and Port of Spain. And next to that, we have, well, let's say the Dutch connection in the south with Curaçao, Aruba, and Bonaire. We also fly there daily. So that's about our network next to the smaller islands around us, because I should not forget that St. Barth, Saba, Montserrat, Nevis, Statia, it's all islands that we fly to nearly all daily.
Okay. Well, let me take a minute and a half commercial break, and we'll be right back. Before I go, if you could say your first name, your last name, and the name of the organization you're with.
Hans van der Velde, the CEO of WINAIR.
All right, we'll be right back in a minute and a half.
Hello, Kathy speaking. How may we help you? Yes, all of our cakes are created from scratch, allowing us to offer over 50 flavor combinations. We also have a selection of black cake, rum cake, and tarts. If you want to visit us, just go to our website, www.simplydesserts.net. The number is 443-226-0102. We serve the Maryland, D.C. area and soon are going to ship nationwide. And again, visit www.simplydesserts.net with an S at the end. Enjoy and have a great day. 443-226-0102. 443-226-0102. Yeah!
Attention all private homeowners and contractors. East Caribbean Metals, located on the island of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, have affordable pricing on all roofing material, PVC pipes, steel, and much more. Call East Caribbean Metals, 1-784-456-1843. Remember, your U.S. dollar goes further when you purchase your building supplies from East Caribbean Metals. Visit www.ecmil.net for more product information.
This is Greg. I live in Virginia. And to stay connected and informed to my community, I listen via live stream to www.cbn-virginislands.com.
Thank you so much for staying tuned to 90.9 FM. My name is Lawrence Boschulte, and my guest, if you could say your first name, your last name, and the name of the organization you're with. I'm not hearing you.
Yes, you will hear me. Hi, okay. Larry.
Good. No problem.
Also, Velde, CEO of WINAIR.
Great. So before I forget and we go too far in because we have about 20 minutes left, if you could explain to me how come you can't fly to the Virgin Islands, and let's see if our end is the problem or what can be, not to say I can solve it, but just hearing it, maybe somebody might hear it or watch it and say, oh, let's see if we can get WINAIR down here.
That would be great, but I'm not too optimistic about it. Aviation is a very much a regulated business. There are all kinds of rules and regulations, and the United States has its own regulations, and they categorize countries in level 1 or level 2. And if you're a level 1 country, your airlines can fly to the United States. If you're a level 2 country, then your airlines are not allowed to fly to the United States. And in the Caribbean, there are many countries that for America are level 2, which has nothing to do with the airline, but it's the country that is looked upon. So American aviation authorities, they check a country, and if a country cannot provide sufficient evidence that they are well structured and safe, etc., you are simply not allowed to fly to the United States. So that prevents us from flying to the American Virgin Islands. And we know that we would have customers in both St. Thomas and St. Croix, but we always understand that people fly to Tortola and take the boat. So we would love to, but unfortunately, currently we can't.
Understood. It just, as you stated, we do have a lot of people from the Eastern Caribbean that migrate here, and then not only do they live here, but then they either send for their family or their family visits them, whether it's for the festival or they might not have family, just want to come to the various festival and carnivals throughout. All three islands have it at different times. St. Thomas is in April, St. Croix is right now, and St. John is 4th of July. But then there's other things, all horse races. There's tons of different things that go on. So I agree with you.
No, so that's sorry, but that's also for us rather frustrating that sometimes in aviation there are rules that understandably the general public doesn't know. But I will give you another example. We have close by, we have Guadeloupe and Martinique. There are two French islands. We're also not allowed to fly between these two. We know there is a demand. Many people want us to fly there, but between two French islands as a non-French airline, we are not allowed. So these kind of things also play a role, not only for the American Virgin Islands, but for other countries around.
Okay. us from expanding, I guess, because to me, I don't understand why they would do something like that. But I don't sit behind the desk of the aviation to say no this and yes this. So, but at least you're still doing well. Though 19 seaters and 50 seaters is still a lot to get a lot of people back and forth. As you mentioned earlier, there's 26 routes that go through St. Kitts and 18 through the BVI. Do you look at your different routes that you go to and say, hey, I noticed you mentioned earlier that one of the BVI overnight sleep so that you can first thing in the morning take people. Yeah. I think they tried to do something like that in St. Thomas but they stopped having the planes stay here, like going back to what you said, for safety reasons. I guess we used to have an overnight Miami that the American used to be here and then leaves first thing in the morning, but they stopped that as well. I wouldn't know why, but like I said, you being in your CEO of WINAIR would understand more of why the safety and why aviation is done that way. Individuals like me, the layman, would look at it like, oh, they should do this. But like I said, it goes back to you have more information behind your desk than I do.
Well, of course, I can't judge why another airline is doing things, but I don't think safety is an important element. But for instance, your aircraft need to be maintained, and maintenance you normally do on your home base. So
okay.
Also for us, we can't have all our aircraft overnighting in other places. But for the passengers, it's often very convenient to give you an example, because we overnight in the British Virgin Islands. We can offer a morning flight going from the British Virgin Islands via a short stop in St. Kitts. We go to Barbados. And that's, of course, very convenient, because if you wouldn't have that overnight, you first would need to come from St. Martin, etc. So for us, it's a very efficient model, and I'm not sure why airlines don't do that in the American Virgin Islands. It could work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You mentioned a quick stop in St. Kitts and then to Barbados. Do you do that quite often with a lot of your planes that you have? A quick fly in, check in other people?
What we don't want to do is so-called bus routes. So what we don't want to do is St. Martin, Antigua, St. Kitts, Barbados, Port of Spain, because for a customer it's a lot of stops, and for an airline it's very expensive.
Okay. So
we try to limit, and it normally works out to 2 stops. So for instance, what I just mentioned is a good example. We do British Virgin Islands, St. Kitts, Barbados, back to St. Kitts, and back to the Virgin Islands. So you have maximum 1 stop on the way.
Okay.
We have clearly seen that for customers, they appreciate that much more than 2 or 3 stops. So we don't do these busing type of routes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, totally understand. And like you said, the customer might not like that. It's like in the U.S. Virgin Islands again, if they land, they catch a taxi, and sometimes the taxis stop at each of the hotels. Some of the clients don't like that. So I understand what you're saying. But the taxi, looking at it like, I can get 10 or 15 people, 15 passengers for a few. And so it's both ways for you. Different.
Go ahead. Finding the balance. So that's why we don't fly directly from the British Virgin Islands to Barbados, because we don't succeed in filling the aircraft. But if you fly via St. Kitts, combined, you do fill the aircraft. So that's the way we find this optimum solution. Yeah.
Great to see. Before we go forward, tell me a little bit about your recruitment on getting pilots. Do you try to get as much local pilots, and do you have a program for young ones that are coming up to take some lessons in order to, well, I'm not saying you can't just take a lesson like that. You have to have a lot of flight, but just if you have plans like that to try and keep more of the local pilots in the Caribbean.
Yeah, it's that's a good point. It's really difficult to find pilots, because also like we're fighting for passengers, we're also fighting for crew. Everybody that's living in St. Martin or is willing to live in St. Martin and is interested in becoming a pilot is hired by WINAIR.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's that simple. Also because we have been growing quite a lot. So we have about, let's say, I think 70, 80 pilots now. And the good thing what we can offer is, and that's helpful, with us you can start on the smaller airline, so the 19-seater, which is, I won't say more easy because it's a difficult aircraft, but to get your license, it's a smaller step than for a 50-seater. So you start with us, you can start on the 90-seater, and after a few years you can continue to grow onto the 50-seater. So yes, everybody is listening, and that's from the region and willing to. I mean, our base is St. Maarten, so you have to be willing to move to St. Maarten. Very welcome to WINAIR.
As an individual, for the CEO of WINAIR, sitting down and recruiting, like you said, it's hard to find people in the region. Do you send an ad out just like how you saw the ad for you to see that there was a CEO? You send an ad out because it's you won't see ads for pilots. Is it like a call? How do you recruit pilots?
Well, it's by the way, it's not only pilots, but also, for instance, engineers, maintenance people in the maintenance organization. There are not many schools in the Caribbean that focus on aviation. So half of our maintenance team, unfortunately, is coming from countries like Colombia, where they do. I mean, they're great. I say unfortunately because I mean they're great mechanics, but it would be great also to have local people. And we do have half of the team because we grew them. So we when they go from school, 18, 19, they start with us. We give them education, and so they grow into their role. So yes, we do use advertisement, but we also, for instance, to find pilots, we had an incentive program in the company. Everybody that we did it a year ago, everybody that knew a pilot in the region that would be willing to start with WINAIR, I think we paid $2,000, something like that, to our own employees, to stimulate people to find crew, because it is very difficult. Yeah.
As for WINAIR, when you have these different, we go back to the roots with the 18 at the British Virgin Islands, 26 for St. Kitts, 17 for Antigua. Do you have or working on some type of a package for the tourists who comes to these various islands? And because even when they come here to the US, they want an island hop. Now, island hopping from St. Thomas to St. John is easy. It's only on ferries $12. Yeah. But if you're going to go from St. Thomas to St. Croix, it's almost $200. It's going to deflate them from wanting to do something like that. Do you think that you have that in the future for WINAIR to do a package like on because what we talked earlier, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, no one's going, and finding a way of trying to fill it with the tourists or even locals that are retired or whatever to try and get back, because it's going to be empty no matter what.
Well, the honest answer is I'm not too optimistic, because indeed flying in this region is expensive. And one of the reasons is, I think we all know, very high taxes. So my favorite example, if you do a return flight between St. Maarten and Antigua, which is 30 minutes, you start with $200 in taxes. So not for us, but for the government.
Yeah.
So that's, we didn't even start to calculate anything. So $200 alone in taxes for that one return flight.
Per flight, not even
That's per customer.
So people can understand that. Yeah.
So for certain islands, you can really forget about island hopping. It's simply too expensive.
Correct.
Luckily, there are some exceptions. We do a so-called day fare, which is you can hop up and down on a day to Saba and to Statia. We do this, the adjacent small islands, for less than $100. So there are opportunities, but they are rare. What we see is that we didn't talk about it, but we have commercial partnerships with airlines like JetBlue, Air France, KLM, United.
Yeah. Okay.
So half of our customers are coming from the international flights. So what we see is that they arrive here in St. Martin with these carriers, and we transport them onwards to Dominica. Also a lot of French people, for instance, to the British Virgin Islands. And these people also sometimes don't go only to one island, but also sometimes to two. But through island hopping, it's a very it's interesting to talk about it. It's very limited.
Yeah, I thought it was only the U.S. Virgin Islands, but now hearing you talk, I see we're not special anymore. That it's throughout the region.
No, it's really throughout the region, and of course I use an extreme example. It's not everywhere that high, but the cost is prohibitive for island hopping. Yeah.
Is there a way that the airlines, WINAIR, and some of the other ones get together and try to talk to the various governments? I mean, you can't talk to the USVI government because of being a two, but you and some of the other ones in the Eastern Caribbean sitting down to talk to, for a government charging $200, I think that hampers you to becoming profitable.
Well, today in our home base, St. Martin, it was announced that the local tax is currently $68, and it will be in 2 years, it will be 80 something. So even at my home base, we don't succeed in preventing these price raises. So I'm not cynical, but I'm realistic. I see a lot of my fellow airline CEOs trying to fight this for 10, 20, 30 years. In real life, it is a way for governments to get in money, especially from the international tourists. Mm-hmm. They don't distinguish between local and international tourists. Sometimes there is some distinction. Mm-hmm. And well, they see the money. So I'm not optimistic that we can change that, although we try.
I agree with you. They don't look at locals or international. They see the number at the end. When it says monthly when it travels 20,000 people, they're looking at, if I add on X amount of dollars, how much more they can make to improve.
Well, what I told governments, and they didn't like me for it, but okay, I'm not here to be liked. I told them that, okay, if you do that, I can understand your calculation, but then you need to accept the fact that for your local people, it's getting very difficult to travel.
Correct.
So that's the consequence of your policy, and if you accept that, then it's fine. But don't ask airlines for very low prices, because we can't.
Correct. Yeah, totally understand, and that's why if people don't understand that, or people don't hear what you're saying, they think it's you that's charging it. They think it's WINAIR charging that $200, and like, oh, look all this money they make, not understanding if you charge $280, you're only making $80 per that flight that you said had $200 for taxes.
Well, what I sometimes explain is that in this region there was a great airline called Liat that had a lot of flights, a lot of aircraft, and they went bankrupt. I mean, they don't go bankrupt because of they like it. And since I'm here, Jet Air in Curacao went bankrupt. Air Antilles went bankrupt. So and that's not, again, that's because it's so difficult to earn money. And they also had high prices. So to be able to survive here, it's in every airline that will promise you low prices, don't trust them, because it's impossible. It's not going to happen.
Correct. Like I said, without you saying some of these stuff, individuals just hearing the prices, they're not understanding what goes into that price. They just feel the whole amount at the end when they pay that $300 or $400 that goes to the airline, not understanding what you have to pay in order to cover all your costs. And
I really feel for our customers, because yes, it is expensive sometimes for a flight of 20, 30, 40 minutes. For a return flight, you have to pay $250. That's a lot. In other countries, in Europe and America, you could fly hundreds of miles with that. But it's with bigger aircraft, which are cheaper to operate, and you don't have these taxes. So in other countries, sometimes your tax is, I don't know, $10 instead of $80.
Well, I want to agree with you, because from St. Thomas to St. Croix, like I started earlier, is about $230, $240. Why would I pay that to go to St. Croix? Although I would love to see my locals, I could pay to, let's say, 300, add on a couple more dollars, 300 to go to the States. And then when I'm in the States, whether it's Atlanta, whether it's Fort Lauderdale or Miami, I can buy stuff now that's cheaper and bring back home, because now I'm saving even more money. But I agree with you. And the airline that I would go on holds almost 189, so they can keep their costs low compared to a small airline like yourself. And you have 19 and 50. I'm telling you, I'm flying with Cape Air and those other ones that's like 8-seaters and stuff. So to me, yours is a luxury at 19 seats.
Now, luckily, we have great airlines like JetBlue. I guess they will also operate to the American Virgin Islands. A great airline for, especially in the low season, great prices. So if you can get for $250 to New York, yes, I understand that people choose to go there or to Miami with a cheap, low-cost airline. Yes.
Great. Well, my time is coming to an end, I have about 3 minutes left, so I want to give you the last 3 minutes for any closing thoughts that you might have to express to the public about WINAIR.
Well, I want to thank you first for this interview. Well, I'm very proud to be the CEO of this. Well, I won't say small company because we have 300 employees. I think we really succeed in connecting the Caribbean. Sometimes the expectations are that we should be able to fly between all islands a number of times per day. That's not possible, but we can connect nearly all islands the same day, direct or via St. Martin. So if you're looking for a no-nonsense airline that's punctual, that's reliable, and that brings you where you want to be, yes, you have to pay a high fare, but that's true for all airlines in the region. Then we would be really happy to transport you to where you want to be with your family, your friends, the festivals, the carnivals. We see it now with Christmas. Of course, there's a lot of people traveling to their family and friends, and we are very happy that we can facilitate that. The moment we see chances in the market, if we see that flights are filling up, for instance, around Christmas, if possible, we add flights, because with that we can help our clients, and of course it helps us to survive as an airline.
Great. Mr. Hans, I want to thank you so much for providing the information to me and my listeners in the way that people could try and understand what you go through. And it's a situation that we're going to hopefully work on, but it's difficult to bring down prices if the governments aren't working along with the various airlines.
We will do everything possible to make as many connections as possible. On the price, it is what it is. That's currently we have to accept that.
Great.
Thank you very much for having me in the show.
No problem at all. We look forward to talking to you soon.
All right.
That brings us to the end of Caribbean Connection for this show. I will be on. Stay tuned. I come back on in about 3 minutes with Just Government. I'll be right back.